Greetings and welcome to the Afterwords program. My name is Baba Kafense Chike, your host, and I'm honored and privileged to be joined by our presiding Bishop, Jeramogi Mentally Kamathi, this week's presenter of the sermon for this Easter Sunday, Something Inside So Strong. Your scripture comes from today's sermon is from Romans 8, verse 11. God, who has raised Christ from the dead, will also give life to you through his spirit that lives in you. Greetings and welcome, Jeramogi, to the Afterwords program. Could you tell our viewers what inspired your sermon topic in the scripture?
Well, you know that is taken from a song that was written during the height of South Africa's struggle against apartheid, Something Inside So Strong, that became very popular. But the idea of there being something inside that cannot be stopped, that cannot be handled by any of the powers in the world, that idea to me resonated with the concept of resurrection. Because in preaching Easter sermons over the last 50 years, one of the things that I have been trying to emphasize on a regular basis, rather than arguing about the bodily resurrection of Jesus and the history surrounding it and all the theology surrounding it and all of that, I started focusing my attention on how to make resurrection real in the lives of the people who were hearing the message. I was with Jeramogi Bebe one Sunday, and we were watching, the TV was on, and we were watching services. They had these services around the world where people were jumping up and down. It was Easter, and they were shouting and crying. And Jeramogi asked me, what the hell are they excited about? And I said, Jeramogi, it's Easter, it's Resurrection Sunday. And he said, all those Black people out there shouting about resurrection, and they need a resurrection more than anybody else. And that led me to start thinking about how do we deal with resurrection for us as a people, and resurrection for us individually. Well, how does that power relate to our own needs and our own issues? And so that led me down a spiral to find out the resurrection was really central to religion long before Christianity.
Yes, and I could appreciate the whole way you frame resurrection in a different context in terms of rather than looking at some phenomenal or source external to us, the sermon kind of compels us to look within ourselves for the resurrection that we may be expecting or hoping for. You asserted in the opening of the sermon that every prayer, every worship service, and every ritual is about resurrection, seeking new life, new hope, and new possibilities through the power of God. Could you say a little more about that, please?
Well, I mean, I think that our whole effort to relate to God, what we want from God is new life, new hope, and new possibilities. We want the power of God to deal with the things we can't do for ourselves. And so in that sense, we are always seeking resurrection. If we're looking at resurrection, the definition being beyond the resurrection and looking at what the word actually means, it means rising to new life, to finding new life, new hope, and new possibilities. And so in essence, every time we appeal to God in prayer or in worship or in any other thing, it is seeking resurrection.
So what would you say, hopefully millions of people or even more are watching this, what would you say to people that are more enamored by this more, I want to say traditional, for lack of a better word, but the more standard Western or Western type idea of resurrection in terms of Jesus rose and really I don't have to do anything. The resurrection again is external to me and what I can do for myself.
Well, I think that one problem is that people don't understand that Christianity is a relatively modern religion. It doesn't go back really that far, and that it is basically built upon religious traditions that are older than it, um, that predated by thousands of years. So what Christianity is so powerful within our particular culture that it crowds out almost all other discussion. It basically frames what is okay to talk about and to think about, and it blocks out other considerations that create all kind of problems, that not just resurrection issues, but all kind of problems in society. This kind of giving this uh, unlimited power to Christianity is part of why we are stuck in the box we're stuck in, because Christianity is really, um, for lack of a better word, a bastardized religion, adopted and chopped up and redefined so many times for so many different purposes that it doesn't speak clearly and honestly about our relationship with God, about anything really. And people tend to exploit it for their own purposes, because that truly has been its function throughout history. It's really been used as a tool for somebody else's agenda. And so it's not really like you can use Christianity as a true yardstick for what we're talking about when we're talking about the will of God in the world. So if if you're going to have a yardstick, it's going to have to include other traditions and a greater knowledge of religion and religious intent than just what's taught in Christianity. So when you start considering resurrection beyond Christianity, you see that it is really at the center of life in the universe. There's birth, life, death, and resurrection and everything. That it's central to everything. So when we think of it like that, then that opens up resurrection possibilities for us. And they don't have to be limited to the resurrection possibilities made possible by Jesus's death upon the cross, but also the resurrection possibilities that are available to us every day.
Yes, and you early on in your words you just presented, you talked about Christianity being young, and you go into great detail about African culture, African spiritual practices. How does the perspective or the theology of the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church fit with our traditional African ancestral spiritual practices?
Well, it fits because that's what we practice. We are not traditional Christians. I mean, we acknowledge Christianity because our experience of the last 400 years has been largely rooted in the Christian tradition, but we're not limited by that tradition. We're open to traditions that are much older and that are uh, uh, more indigenous to us as a people. Um, um, it's we incorporate all those traditions in our conception of religion, and Christianity is just one tradition. It's not the sole tradition.
Right. I appreciate that. Thank you for that. You also, near the closing of the sermon, talk about how we need to learn how to activate this power within us and cooperate with it to serve our best interests. I would like to ask you, as we're kind of getting close to the conclusion, if you could speak to that as a response to the Christian nationalism that we see emerging in programs that you mentioned, like Project 2025 and the Seven Mountains Mandate. So could you maybe say just a little about those things and how our ability to activate our power and cooperate with it can help us overcome these attacks on our people?
Well, white nationalism is really an example of what I was talking about, people using Christianity for their own purposes. White nationalism is closely aligned with white supremacy and slavery and the oppression of Black people. And it seeks to turn the clock back and to put Black people back into the box that we've been in for most of the time that we've been in the country. And because these people feel more comfortable with that arrangement, they try to impose that arrangement and build their religious beliefs around the sacredness of that arrangement, and to try to reimpose it. The white nationalism, the Seven Mountains Mandate is an effort to impose their view of the world on the rest of the world.
Mhm.
And but we have something inside so strong that gives us the ability to resist that imposition against our will, of their will against our will. And that's what we have to learn, that we have inside, and learn how to activate and to cooperate with, because that is the essence of what we fight with. We've always fought with our spirits.
Mhm.
That our whole tradition, the whole 400 years of our experience, where everything was against us. The only thing that allowed us to continue to push back in the face of absolute and utter hopelessness was this thing inside that was seeking expression in the world, that allowed us to resist and push back on overwhelming force. So these efforts to try to push us back into make the future look like the past, it's going to require us to again uh, learn how to use our spirituality to push back on these overwhelming forces that may be in control of everything external and material, but they're not in control of us. And
Mhm.
so our simple refusal not to cooperate is a powerful counterforce against the forces of white supremacy and those seeking to impose a world that puts us back in a Jim Crow box. We have to understand the foundations of our ability to resist oppression is our spiritual
Mhm.
foundations, our inner spiritual power. And that is what gave rise to our struggle throughout the last 400 years. And it is what will give what will give energy to our efforts going forward.
Thank you so much for that. I'm reminded of the word. I'm pretty sure you use resilience in the sermon, and that's
Yeah.
what it sounds like. I want to thank you for this time we've had to kind of chop it up and dig a little deeper into the sermon for Easter Sunday, something inside so strong. Thank you for being here and for your wisdom. We'd like to also thank our viewers for participating in another episode of the Afterwords, which is a discussion of the weekly sermons presented by Bila Kuta of the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church, which is Church Without Walls. We invite you and everyone that views us and others to join us weekly for the Bila Kuta broadcast. You're also welcome to join us in person at one of our shrines of the Black Madonna in Atlanta, Georgia, Detroit, Michigan, Houston, Texas, and Calhoun Falls, South Carolina. Thank you very much and have a very good holiday weekend.
God bless you, brother.